Welcome to my craft area. I'm Anna Hellman and I'm so glad you're here with me today. Let's look at today's project. I am so excited about today's project. It's been quite a while since I've done anything fun with watercolor, and I decided to break out some fun watercolor techniques today with a few other special techniques, and this is what I have created. So this is a card that I think could be, I created it with the intention of it being a wedding card, but could definitely work for an anniversary or Valentine's Day, just any type of occasion related to love. And then I created this is a 5x7 frame that could go with it for a wedding gift or a Valentine's Day gift or something like that, anniversary gift to your spouse. So let's get started and I'll show you exactly how to create this. The paper supplies you will need include a piece of watercolor paper that measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, your black card base that measures 5 1/2 by 8 1/2. You'll need another piece of white for the inside that measures the same as the watercolor paper. And then I use some Love You Always foil paper for this. Some more black cardstock for the background and the greetings, lace, some of these black dots, and then our inks and a few other little tools as well. So the first thing we want to do is get everything stamped onto our watercolor paper. So I'll bring that in, and we're going to use the Stamparatus for this. Now I have my magnets in the corners because I may end up stamping off the edge just a little bit. And if I don't have my magnets in the corners, that is not possible because I can't have a stamp over here that's going to hang off the edge. So I am going to start with the large flower, and I'm going to place it approximately here. Let's get my magnet on to hold everything in place. Scoot it over just a touch and get this attached to the plate. Now, I really wanted to do this with my Stamparatus because I stamped every flower and leaf and the little buds. I stamped them 2 times to get a really nice dark color. Now, I should tell you right now about the ink choice that I made, and I'll show you here in just a second. So I'm using Memento ink, which with watercoloring is not always recommended. If you want to make sure that nothing bleeds during this, then you will want to use StazOn ink. But I mistakenly used Memento as I was getting started because that is my go-to black ink, and honestly, I just didn't think about it that I should use my StazOn instead. So then I realized that when I started adding water, it was blurring a little bit. Now, when I use my water painters on regular cardstock, I don't usually have a problem with it blurring, which is probably why I didn't think about it before I got started. But when I'm using this watercolor paper, it does blur a little bit. So I got a little nervous. I thought I was going to have to start over, redo the whole thing, all of the stamping. And then by the time I got to working on it, got a little further into it, I decided I actually liked it. So let me show you the difference between, actually I'm not showing you a difference. I just want to show you the 2 things I created. So on this one, if you look real close, you can see that the black blurred just a touch. Now this is with our current watercolor paper. Now with this other one, with my framed piece, I believe I added a little bit more water, and I was using old watercolor paper. So you can see on this one, it blurred a little bit more, and for some of you that may like totally freak you out and you can't handle that, and some of you may think that looks really cool. I actually kind of like how it looked. This did blur a little bit more than I wanted to, but I'm going to go for the look I create on this one. So with our current watercolor paper and just a little bit of water, that is the look we should get. If you don't want any blurring, use StazOn ink. So we have 2 of the large flowers, and set that right there so that you can see what we are attempting to create. Now I need the small flower, and it just occurred to me I haven't even shown you the products I'm using, so let's do that quickly before a squirrel moment happens and I forget. So here is it's the Forever and Always bundle. I love this set. It caught my eye as soon as I saw it. It's absolutely beautiful. I did use this one for the greeting on the inside. So we are going to continue stamping away. Now I created some masks out of Post-it notes. Now these are the Post-it notes that the whole piece is adhesive, not just the top edge. So I'm going to put these on now that I've stamped my two big flowers. I used the dies in the set to cut these out, which means they are slightly larger than the flowers themselves. If you want them to match up perfectly, you can stamp the flower and then cut it out by hand. But it is close enough for me with the die cut, so that's what I did. Now we'll add one of these small flowers down in the corner. I am giving this a good press. Because I'm using the watercolor paper, it has a little bit of texture, and the ink doesn't always want to get down into the crevices. So I'll clean that off, we'll move it again. Stamp one up here. And I am going to fast forward you through this part. So enjoy and watch along as I finish the flowers and the buds and the leaves. Now we'll take the masks off and reveal what we have underneath. So there we have our beautiful flower cluster. Now you can see a few gaps in the centers where I told you that my mask pieces were a little bit larger than the flowers, so we have a few little gaps here. But what I notice is after I color this, you don't even notice that. Now I want to tape this piece down on my work surface, and we will start to add some water and add some color. So I use some washi tape. You want to be careful about the kind of tape you use so that it's not something that is going to damage your paper when you remove it. But this is going to help to hold it all in place when the water is added. Move this up a little bit to make it easier for you to see. You don't have to tape it down, but just realize that as you start to add the water, it's going to bow up and curl, so it won't lay flat anymore. Now I want to use water painters. I have the two smaller ones of the set of 3 here. And I have several colors of ink. We'll go ahead and do the pinks first. So I have, that one is Melon Mambo. Here's Magenta Madness and Poppy Parade as well. So when you are adding color and you're wanting to watercolor, you can do 2 things. One, before you open your ink pad, you can give it a real good squeeze right here, and you're going to get some ink up here on the lid. Now the other thing, for some people that is really messy and just not acceptable. So it can also be hard to squeeze and get that color on there. So the other thing you can do is use a block. Just put it right on your ink pad. And now this is going to act as our little painting palette to pick up that color that we need. So my lightest color is in the center. I need to remember that. I'm going to move these around so that I don't get them mixed up. And I want to spritz my paper here real quick. I like to add some water to it first because it just helps the color to move around. Now keep in mind, this is the step where my black starts to bleed a little bit, and that is going to depend on how much water I add. So be careful about adding too much, and if you do, then it's just realize that it's going to bleed a little bit more. So I am going to use my the smallest water painter, just because that's the one I prefer to work with. You could use the bigger one or the medium-sized one if you want, but I'm going to start with my Magenta Madness and just start painting all over these flowers. I want to fill in all of the flower petals. And you do not have to be neat with this. I love the casual look of watercolor. So when I got done with my other one, I actually went back and added some color outside of the lines. Here, I'll color outside the lines a little bit here, just because I like the way that looks. So you don't have to be very careful. This doesn't have to take a lot of time. What I like to do when I pick up the color, that's when you're going to get the darkest color when you apply that to the paper. So I always pick up my color and start in the center of the petals and move outwards, because typically the darkest color is going to be in the center. And as you move out, more of the light is going to show on those petals and they will appear a lighter color. So that's how I apply the color to the petals. Definitely have some bleeding of the black going on. That probably violates some kind of stamping. Is that like on the 10 Commandments of stamping? Thou shalt not watercolor with memento ink. I don't know. I may be in trouble with some of you out there. So we'll get these flowers colored in. Any of those gaps that were white where the flowers didn't stamp completely, I just colored those in with ink and didn't really notice them after that. We're going to put our greeting over top of this anyway, so realize that this will not all show. Get the buds colored in. And after, I'm running out of ink here, so I'm going to pick up some more. Now I reordered my ink pads, so I better get the right one. So I want to make sure I have plenty of water in my aqua painter, and I'm going to go back and add some more color, which I did not. I'm going to squeeze it a little bit more to get some water down in there. There we go. And I like to come back in and just add more color for one and make it a little bit more uneven. Those areas of really rich color are what I think makes these projects look just really stunning, really one of a kind. So I want to get the Magenta Madness looking the way I like it, with lots of color and lots of variation. And then we are going to add 2 other colors. Now, I told you I like the messy look. I'll tell you one thing I don't like is when I have white spots left that were not colored. So little tiny ones are okay, but I thought that took away from the look of the project. So I try to get all those filled in. Now I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to move my Magenta Madness away, and now hopefully I'm picking up the right one. This is going to be Melon Mambo, a deeper pink color. So this I am not going to add all over the place. I'm going to pick and choose some spots to add this. My water painter is getting a little bit dry here, so I am squeezing it to try and get a little more water to come out the tip. If you ever experience where you squeeze it over your project and then you end up with a droplet of water on your project, you can squeeze over top of some scrap paper or your silicone craft sheet or something like that, just to make sure you don't get too much water out there. And we'll add a little bit up here. And then we'll be ready for our poppy parade. So I think that is looking pretty good. use my scrap paper here. I want to give it a squeeze. It got a little bit dry on me. So now this is going to add red in just a few places. And I just love how I think this adds a lot to the project, adding that red in just on a few of the petals. You can add it all on all the flowers in the centers if you want, towards the centers, but I really like the variation of some petals that look more red than the others. Here we'll go around the center of this one a little bit to see what that looks like. As you can see, there's like really no method to the madness. Just color, add color. As you play around with this, you will learn things and decide what you like and decide what you don't like. So I think all of our flowers have color now. So we need to add color to the leaves and the centers of the flowers. So for that, I am using Mango Melody for the centers, and thought I had some ink there. I don't, so I will do the same thing again here. I'll get some on my block. And when you switch colors with your water painter, you just want to squeeze a little bit, get some water out, and color on scrap paper till you don't see any of that color anymore. Now, I've been using that several times, so the color you are seeing is from the last time I did that. Now I want to add this Mango Melody in the centers. And I'm not sure if you can tell in the video, but the center of this is definitely raising up from this water I've added to the paper. So it's nice to have it taped down so that it stays in place. I like the way that looks. We'll clean my water painter out and bring in the greens. So these I'm just going to leave off to the side and use from the ink pad itself. So this is Granny Apple Green, probably my favorite new bright green. I just love how bright and vibrant it is, which you can't tell completely on this since I had stamped with the black, but it's just a really pretty bright green. So we'll get the leaves colored in, then the little leaves in the stem under the buds. I want to add some color to those. Now that I have that done, I want to just add a little bit deeper color. So for this, I'm using some Mossy Meadow, and I'll start down at the bases, like right here where I'm working right now. That would be down in a deep shadow under those flowers. So we'll start down there, add some dark, and I like to add the dark up the center as well, where a lot of times you have a little bit of a shadow. Okay, so I think we have all of our color added. Now we get to start putting everything together, which is the fun part when we get to see all of the pretties come together. And I won't get ahead of myself, so it's a good thing I take notes because sometimes I forget the order of my projects. So the next thing I want to do is add the splatters. Let's bring this one back in so you can see the splatters. If you don't like splatters, of course you don't have to add this, but I kind of love splatters. So I am going to use my Melon Mambo color, and this works a little bit better with the bigger water painter just because there's more water to dribble and splatter. So I'm going to pick up some of that color. I want to squeeze it until, I'll try and show you this here in a sec, till I can see water sort of hanging in the bottom of the tip. It's getting close, but not quite. So it's getting really thick down there in the bottom. There's a lot of water in that tip. So once that happens, I am just going to hit the aqua painter against my hand while holding it over it, or sometimes I even pull my hand back here where you can't see, because some of these splatters are going to shoot way up out in front. So what I'm doing right now, that just added some little tiny splatters to it. Usually I find some of the splatters end up directly below where the water painter is. There are some big ones, and some of them are going to shoot up way forward, way ahead of it. And some of them, you'd want to be careful with this because some of them end up on my wall here in front of me. So this will splatter for a couple of feet. So be very careful with that. And I think my splatters are complete. So when you're splattering, you are never going to get the same thing twice. I got a couple of real big ones over here, which if I was planning on it, I would have not planned on big splatters right there, but it's just adds to the one-of-a-kind look of your project. So clean all of this up and we can now untape this. As soon as this is dry, we can get everything assembled. So I'll go ahead and tell you about the rest of the project, how I prepared the greetings, and then we can get everything put together. So here's the tag that I have already created with the dies in the set. I love these dies. I love these big words. So the set comes with the big word always, so it's the word itself and the background piece with the black here. And then the same thing for the word love. You get the word itself and then the background piece. So I cut the background out of black. I cut the word itself out of the Love You Always foil paper. Now on this one, I don't know if you'll be able to see the difference. I put adhesive sheets on the back of my foil paper, then I die cut it out so that it turned it into one big sticker and made it really easy to apply. But there's no dimension on this one, except for behind all of it, I attached it with dimensionals. Now on this one, it's a little bit different. Can you see that dimension there in the word always itself? I attached my foil paper to some foam adhesive sheets, then I die cut it out, and then I attached it to the black paper. So here the word itself is actually popping up. Then I attached a little bit of lace down here behind with a couple of glue dots, and that should be ready to attach. Now I do need to dry this real quick, so bear with me while I dry this with my heat tool. Okay, this is all dry now, so we're ready to put everything together. I have my black card base, and I want to attach this with some really strong adhesive. If you see, it's still warped a little bit, and you want some good adhesive that's going to hold all of this down flat to your card. So I am using my Seal Plus, which is the best. It is nice and strong, and I just want to make sure I get a strip of this along every edge, and then I always go back with these watercolor paper pieces and put some in the center as well. This is a little bit hard to see on my black background. I want to make sure I get this centered, so I'll pull in some paper and get that pressed down really well. I love how that stands out on the black background. We will go ahead and attach the piece on the inside. I prepared this. It says, wishing you a long life together filled with love and, I almost said compromise. Compromise is pretty important, right? But it actually says love and promise. So I did this just on regular white paper, so you can see you don't get quite the watercolored look as you do with the watercolor paper, but you can do that as well. And now we are ready for the greetings. So here's the one I showed you a second ago. And then I already have the small piece that says forever and prepared as well. So I want to put this on with some glue. You could pop this up more with dimensionals if you want, but since I already used the foam adhesive sheets for the letters, I decided I didn't really want to pop it up any more than that. Put that right there. Now here is the tag. I embossed the word forever and I stamped it with Versamark, used white embossing powder, and then heated it up for the embossing. Now, this is where it really gets fun. Isn't that looking pretty? Now I want to add some of these black dots, which are probably a little bit hard to see as well. But we'll add a few of these. I debated whether I wanted to put them on top of the flower or around the edges, and I really just decided that I like the look around the edges a little bit better. And a little trick when you're putting dots on is when I put them on, I don't push very hard. I just want to get it to sit on top of my card and see what it looks like. And then if I decide I want to move them, which I did when I was making up my sample here, I can go back and move them since they haven't really been pressed down yet. Okay, so I like the way those look. I think they're balanced. I think they look nice, so I'll press them down. And one last step. I almost didn't do this step, but I just had to because we were this close. It's already gorgeous. You notice what I haven't done yet? We need a little glimmer all over our flowers, so let's use some Wink of Stella. And I did this a little bit like I applied my color with the water painter. I started in the center of the flower and I just brushed outwards a little bit. I did not come out all the way. So we have some glisten in the centers and then not on the tips of the petals. So let's look at her. I just love the way this looks. I love watercoloring on projects. I love the foil paper, the little embellishments. I think together it just makes for a really beautiful project. So here is the frame piece and our 2 cards. Thanks so much for joining in today. For more information and links to the products used today, click in the video description box down below to visit my website. Make sure you also click down below to subscribe to my channel and hit the little bell to receive notifications when I share new videos. I truly appreciate you being here, as well as every like, share, and comment that I receive. I'll see you again next time when I'll be back helping you to hand make with love.